Welcome to Channel Today in History. In today's video we will talk about the day September 17, 1944. Operation Market Garden. Operation Market Garden was an Allied military operation carried out during World War II, between September 17 and 25, 1944. Its tactical objective was to capture a series of bridges over the main rivers of the Netherlands occupied by the Germans. To this end, large-scale paratroopers were used, in conjunction with a rapid advance of armored units along the roads, to achieve the strategic purpose of allowing the Allies to cross the Rhine, the last great natural barrier to an advance over the Germany. Shortly after 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning, September 17, 1944, the largest force of troop transport planes ever assembled for a single operation took off from airports scattered across southern England. That week, the 263rd of World War II Supreme Allied Forces Commander General Dwight David Eisenhower unleashed Operation Market Garden, one of the boldest and most ingenious of the war, a combined air and surface offensive devised by the Marshal of Field Bernard Montgomery. Its airborne, market, phase of the operation was monumental. It involved nearly 5,000 fighter, bombers, and personnel carriers and over 2,500 gliders, which would be an unprecedented daytime assault for paratroopers. On the ground, arranged along the Belgian-Dutch border, were the forces of the Garden Phase, compact columns of tanks of the British Second Army. The ambitious plan was to quickly launch troops and armor through the Netherlands, cross the Rhine, and invade Germany itself. Initially, the operation was successful, with the conquest of the bridge over the Vaal River in Nijmegen on September 20. However, it turned out to be a general failure due to the Arnhem Bridge, the last on the Rhine, not being conquered, and the fact that the British 1st Airborne Division was destroyed in battle, despite having withstood much more than was estimated before the implementation. The Rhine would remain a barrier to Allied advance until the Allied offensives carried out in March 1945. General Montgomery had 3 airborne divisions, the 101st and 82nd American Divisions, the 1st British Airborne Division, and a Polish parachute brigade, totaling more than 41,000 paratroopers, not including ground troops. The Germans probably had more men, but their forces were spread throughout the region. After Market Garden, the positions of the battle lines in Western Europe remained almost unchanged until the end of 1944. After major defeats in Normandy in July and August 1944, the remaining German forces withdrew, through the Netherlands and western France, towards the borders of Germany at the end of August. In the north, the British 21st Army Group, under the command of Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, was advancing in a line that stretched from Antwerp to Belgium's northern borders. The Canadian 1st Army was just finishing its own offensive northwards along the coast, and was too tired to take part in any major actions. South of them, the U.S. 12th Army Group, under the command of General Omar Bradley, was approaching the German border, and had been ordered to forward the Aachen Breach along with the U.S. 1st Army. In the south, 6th Army Group, under the command of General Jacob Devers, was advancing towards Germany before their landings in southern France. One of the weak points of the operation, not even known to the Allies, was the movement of German troops that were moving from some fronts towards the Netherlands. The British Secret Service was unable to identify these movements. For example, the 9th and 10th Panzer Divisions that had been fighting in Normandy since D-Day were suffering enormously from a lack of supplies and human material. They were ordered to move to the Netherlands for reorganization and resupply. Added to this, the fact that the German advance into Antwerp had been halted, which allowed General von Zongen's 15th Army to withdraw its troops and also head for the Netherlands, was a considerable force of approximately 60,000 men beyond of their equipment. This left the Netherlands with a force of 3 German headquarters, the HQ of Commander William Model, commander of Army Group B, the HQ of the 2nd Panzer Corps under the command of Obergruppenführer Wilhelm Bittrich, and Gen. von Zagen, commander of the 15th Army. They were extremely experienced troops, as they had participated in several campaigns, including veterans of the Eastern Front and the black shirts of the SS forces, elite troops who participated in the fighting, but they were hierarchically subordinated to Heinrich Himmler, supreme head of the Gestapo/SS. 2 panzer divisions from Bittrich were parked right in the Arnhem region, the scene of fierce battles for control of the bridge over the Rhine with the men of Lieutenant Colonel John Frost's 2nd Parachute Battalion. The execution. The operation was launched with several divisions of British and American paratroopers, whose objectives were to seize several bridges and allow the advance of the armored units to consolidate north of Arnhem, advancing through the Netherlands. The main bridges to be taken were over the Meuse, Waal, and the lower Rhine rivers, also crossing small canals and tributaries. The Allies' initial advances were successful. Several bridges were taken between the cities of Eindhoven and Nijmegen. The British XXX Corps was delayed in advance as the paratroopers struggled to seize the bridges between Sun and Nijmegen. German forces blew up the bridges over the Wilhelmina Canal before retreating. The 101st Airborne Division of the U.S. Army then took over the region. The 82nd British Paratrooper Division failed to seize the Waal River crossings at Nijmegen before September 20, 1944. Further delaying the advances of the Allied mechanized forces. In the farthest corner of Allied parachute operations at Arnhem, the British 1st Airborne Division encountered stiff resistance from German defenders. The Allied delay in capturing the bridges, particularly at Sun and Nijmegen, gave the German army time to organize its lines of defense and mobilize more men and tanks, and soon planned a counterattack. At the subsequent Battle of Arnhem, British paratroopers managed to conquer the north of the city, but when ground reinforcements were delayed, they were eventually overrun by the Germans on September 21. What was left of the 1st Airborne Division was trapped in a small pocket west of the city bridge, only being evacuated on the 25th. In the end, the Allies failed to establish their goals and crossed the River Rhine, and the German defenses in the north and west of their country remained firm, and would not give up completely until March 1945. The failure of Operation Market Garden ended expectations of the Allies trying to end the war by Christmas 1944. Allied forces suffered more losses in Market Garden than in the massive Normandy invasion. Most historians agree that within the 24-hour period of D-Day, June 6, 1944, Allied losses reached an estimate of 10,000 to 20,000. In the 9 days of Operation Market Garden, the combined losses airborne forces in dead, wounded and missing amounted to more than 17,000. British losses were the highest, 13,226. Urquhart Division was almost completely destroyed. In the initial attack force at Arnhem, with a strength of 10,005, which includes the Poles and the glider pilots, the losses totaled 75-78. The 30th Horrocks Corps lost 1480, and the 8th 12th British Corps another 3874. The German figures remain somewhat unclear, but at Arnhem and Oosterbeek losses amounted to 3,300. However, Model's losses are considered the highest. Taking into account the battlefront that developed throughout the campaign, it is estimated that it may have reached 10,000. Years later in his memoirs, Marshal Montgomery wrote, "In my suspected opinion, if it had been adequately supported from the beginning, and had been given the aircraft, ground forces, and administrative resources necessary for the task, that the operation would have been successful, despite my mistakes, or adverse weather, or the presence of the 2nd SS Panzer Corps in the Arnhem area. I remain a staunch supporter of Market Garden." Did you like the video? In the description you will find the blog link with the full article. Give an incentive by subscribing to the channel, liking, commenting, and sharing with your friends. Hugs. Until the next.